Please join me one more time in welcoming Mr. Henry Wied, who is the Assistant General Manager for Red River Authority of Texas.
Well, the old adage, don't count your chicks before they're hatched. Make sure your presentation's on the screen before you get up to the podium, right? That's what you get when you're technically challenged like myself. So anyway, we'll move on because I am the speaker that's holding y'all up from lunch. So November 19, 2005, Russell Shriver gave this presentation, and he's done it several times throughout the state at different gatherings, and matter of fact, he's been across country giving this presentation. He wasn't able to be here today. I'm the lucky soul. So basically what his presentation's about is the drought contingency plan that they had to rework and I guess bring it to the current conditions, which was the drought that really affected the city and the area around there. But the current population, the summary for Wichita Falls, the current population's about 150,000. They utilize 3 lakes for their water supply: Lake Arrowhead, Kickapoo, and then they also use Lake Kemp. They have a total of 95,000 acre-feet of water available for their usage. Water treatment plants, they have 66 million gallon a day conventional treatment capacities and 10 million a gallon a day membrane treatment capacity. The membrane treatment plant was built prior to the drought, so you will see a little bit later how that came into play very critically during the drought. They also supply 15 wholesale customers that include cities, Water Supply Corp., and Red River Authority. More graphs for you. As you see, there's the drought of the 1950s in the center. Then you look on the far right, and we dip considerably below that. Average rainfall for the area is about 28.5 inches per year. Here's another one of those drought state of Texas maps that was presented earlier. 87.83% of the state was in the dark red during 2011. 2015, you know, when you ask your customers, did you get any of that rain the other day? And they say, no, it come up to me and went right around me. Well, the proof's in the pudding here. You can see that it just went right around Wichita Falls. That does happen. As the drought continued, here's conservation measures that the city put in place. There was a total of 1,395 days of water restrictions. That's a long time. The city became much more aggressive with those restrictions during the drought. They had to implement even stage 5 before the end of the drought, which they did not have a stage 5. But the conservation reduced consumption from 35 million gallons a day to 11 million gallons a day. Imagine what that did on the city's budget. So the drought plan included these items, year-round restrictions all the time. Even today, after the drought, these restrictions are still in place. Stage 1 drought plan was pretty basic. It was when the lakes came down as low as 65%. They implemented stage 1 that include these items. The new landscape waiver available for 30 days. If you don't know what that is, basically if you built a new house or new construction and you had a yard that you were trying to get seeded, they would give you a 30-day grace period in stage 1. Stage 2, golf courses were being limited on how often they could water. and these restrictions, again, become more stringent. And this is at 50% lake capacity. Stage 3, 40% lake capacity. And throughout all of these, the year-round restrictions remain in place. As you notice, the new landscape waiver is no longer available. So plant rocks. Stage 4. The city was having a really hard time when you got city council members and public coming to these city council meetings and voicing concerns. Who do we cut off? You know, you're talking about a lot of businesses that are going to get affected by this. You got the landscapers, you got the car washers, you got all these other businesses that are going to be affected by what you do for these staged drought contingency plans that you really have to consider. So, as you can see, they did not turn the car washes off yet. Stage 5, 25% capacity. And as these stages were being implemented, you could just see the number of water wells being drilled in town. The drilling service, the well guys were staying real busy. It's just one after another. Of course, we don't have any good groundwater. It's all brackish groundwater. So it was kind of a chance to drill a well because you didn't know what kind of salt levels are going to be in the water that you could produce. Could you put it on your lawn? So you had to have it tested. And, you know, people were finding out that the water was too salty. And it was killing their grass, killing their trees. So they had to start hauling in water. So these big black tanks, you can go to Wichita Falls now and drive around. You see big black tanks at people's yards. They were hauling in water from out of town, putting it in, filling their tanks up, and then they had water. But it was something. The success for the drought, Russell's kind of focused on making sure that you have a solid, logical water conservation plan, and they do now. The one they had before was adequate, but when you go through a drought record, you can improve that old drought contingency plan. Typically focus on discretionary water uses, make public aware of the plan, and engage all forms of media. They were constantly on the TV, the radio, you know, just updating people, letting them know what was going on, conserve, how to conserve, tips, everything they could. And then, most of all, you have to enforce the plan. And they actually drove around. If you were breaking the restrictions, you were given a ticket. Existing plan worked well, reduced water demand by over 50%. It was critical to the extent of water supply through the new drought record, and public outreach acceptance efforts was successful. Everybody did jump on board, as you could tell. I mean, we went from, what was it earlier, we reduced it by 50%, which was a lot. The city had to implement surcharges, not only to help the budget, but they also had to implement rate increases as well to help the budget, because they did. I mean, when you're used to a lot of money coming in for water sales and that drops off, you've got to do something to replace that. If you have any questions, you feel free to contact Russell Schreiber. That is his phone number and his email address. As the previous speaker said, the city actually did get a direct reuse permit, so they did pipe the water from the effluent of their wastewater plant. It's a little over 1.5 miles to 2 miles, I believe, to their water plant on Cypress, which was where the membrane plant was. So the membrane plant was originally, the RO plant was originally built to treat the Lake Kemp water, which was high in salinity, so that they could use that water. And they used it up to the point that they could not get any more out of it, and then just replace that water with the wastewater plant effluent. The water tasted really good, I can tell you all that. It didn't taste like poop. it actually tasted better now than it does now, better then than it does now because of all the RO water that they had to blend with. The taste and odors, you just never had them. Now we got a lot of lake turnover and odors from the lake, algae blooms, you name it, and the water tastes kind of dirty right now. So kind of wish that RO was back a little bit more. To move along, here's what I've added to his presentation. This is Lake Arrowhead at the state park. You can notice that the pier there is above the ground. That's probably 12 to 15 feet above ground. You kind of have to remember these pictures because I'm going to show you some where that's really high water levels. This is Lake Wichita. This is the lake that the city, or not the city, but the city is supporting the movement, but there's efforts being made to try to dredge this lake and bring it back to a more recreational lake. As you can see, those wood pylons that are in the water there, the old wood pylons, that was from the original, I believe it was a hotel back in the 20s and 30s that people would come and visit and stuff. This is Red River at Burke-Burnett. I didn't have the picture that showed it dry, but during the drought, this became dry for several months. No water at all moving through here. This is Holiday Creek. That is the pipeline that the city ran to the water plant. It's a poly pipe. They ran it all the way through Holiday Creek and through drainage ditches to make it to the water plant. Another picture of it. I don't know about y'all, but we didn't have any grass, and there wasn't a whole lot of water to give to the livestock and the animals around us, and they kind of started looking like that. And this became a common theme. The drought was causing people to put their homes up for sale. People were getting worried. When you drop below 20% and you don't know, you either get on your knees or you figure out how to get out of there, right? So here's the rains. This is Lake Arrowhead where that state park pier was. This is the pier on the bottom left. It's nearly overflowing. This is the spillway from that lake. It's pretty wide, and so you can imagine how much water is just flowing out of the spillway. Lake Kickapoo, top left and bottom left. This is over its spillway, running down, and this runs into Lake Arrowhead. Lake Wichita, running over its spillway on the right. This is further east of us, Lake Moss. So all the rain that y'all got out here went that way. Just kept going down the red, and the rain we got kept going down the red. This is Lake Nakona, and these lakes were really low at one time. We take these pictures often because we're out monitoring the lakes and the streams as well, so we get a lot of these good pictures. And new lake signs that developed. This is Holiday Creek. That's the pipe from the wastewater plant to the water plant. They were a little bit worried about it. They have this thing tied off, you know, them big concrete dividers on the highway, about the size of one of these tables. Well, they put those every so often and had cable running down to the pipe holding it, and it held it. They were running around watching it quite a bit when this came about. Left pictures, if you ever come into Wichita Falls, you know where the waterfall is. This is right on top of it. Looking out to the left there, you can see the edge of the hotel that gets flooded. It almost went into the hotel again. This is out on River Road going to the wastewater plant. The water was coming out of the Wichita River and going into the little park there. Here's the Red River at Burke Burnett now. That little stream you saw earlier, I don't know how wide this is, but it is huge. It's probably one of the largest areas that I've seen water move through in a while. It was very big. This is north of DeKalb, is further east past Lake Texoma. So this is the water that came out of Lake Texoma, out of the spillway. They had this bridge closed. You can't cross it. That's how high the water was. And you can't even see the other side very good through this picture. It's a pretty long bridge. That's Lake Texoma. All the water coming down the Red goes into this lake. All the water coming out of Oklahoma through several major creeks and streams, that all goes into the Red. The water going to the right is coming over the spillway. If you look further to the top, you see the water coming out of the dam through the power generation and through the conduits. And they were open just about full blow. So this water going to the right makes it around to Highway 91. If you look to the right picture, you'll see the culverts that used to be there. It pretty much washed the road, the culverts, everything, widened that little creek and all kinds of stuff. The bottom left picture, there's a power pole hanging off the power lines in the middle. I mean, it widened that little creek a lot. Bottom right, somebody decided to have a little fun with it. So, you got to see pretty much what happened. I told my wife I'll never wish it doesn't rain again. That's all I know. It's a blessing to get rain. Every day I get it now, I thank the good Lord. So, otherwise we could be like California. That's the end of my presentation. I appreciate it. Any questions?
Okay.
I hope this is not a Russell question.
What a commendable story. I mean, very impressive what y'all were able to accomplish there, and really what were dire circumstances. And I think all of Texas is watching. I think all the United States is watching what Wichita Falls pulled off in through there. What I'm interested in asking you is, what was your relationship like in this crisis situation, emergency situation, as you were trying to deal with state regulators, and did you have to deal with any federal regulators in order to put your rescue plan into effect?
I'll try to talk on Russell's behalf here, but it was all state level. TCEQ was there often. They've spelled out a plan. Basically, Wichita Falls spelled out a plan to TCEQ. TCEQ had to approve it. They modified the plan, required certain things of them, and a lot of testing. It just endless on the testing. They had a certain time frame that they were allowed to use that water, and once that time frame came up, the only way TCEQ would allow it to go any further is if they put in UV treatment to extend that to a certain period. So they had to buy and engineer and put in a UV treatment system. So that's no longer being used. If anybody wants it or interested in it, I'm sure Russell would appreciate any calls to buy that boat anchor now. But no, most of it was all state level. Fortunately.
Any other questions? All right, we appreciate your presentation.